Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the interview on this wonderful Sunday evening. We are excited to have each and every one of you here. We want to thank all of our subscribers, our Patreon members, and of course, all of our friends who make this happen. And that means all of our mods. Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Laura, Teresa. We can't do this without you, and Mimi J too. We sure love you both, all of you. We're so grateful for everything that you do. Karen, we have a great show tonight, don't we?
We sure do. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here with us this evening. We're super excited for tonight's show. We've got Stephanie and Mark Tinsley with us for a great conversation. If you don't know who they are, you will find out. You're going to love them. They are an awesome team, the mighty Tinsley team, as we call them over here.
It's a power couple.
They are a power couple. And boy, we've got updates with Mark Tinsley. You'll remember he was very key in the Alex Murdaugh double trial case from just a couple years ago. And his beautiful wife, Stephanie, has an incredible new podcast. If you guys haven't subscribed and listened to it, you got to get over there and do it. We're going to talk about all that and plenty more. So this is going to be a really super fun show. We're grateful that you guys are here with us.
So without further ado, we want to bring in Mark and Stephanie. Welcome to the interview room. So grateful that you're here. Thanks.
So glad to be back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's right.
You're like the number one video we've ever had.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had Mark as a guest on, gosh, I want to say it's been a couple of years already.
Yeah.
Right after Alex Murdaugh was convicted of double murder, of killing his wife and his son. And Mark, it was such a great interview, and we've got a few million views on that. So thank you, Mark. That was awesome. But yeah, we haven't had you back. So this is long overdue.
Probably because you wrote the questions and he asked them the right way.
That's exactly.
Well, you know, whatever it takes, right?
That's right.
You know, and touche. We are off to the races and on the very first comment. Welcome. Okay, so let's do a quick introduction here in totality so that those of you who are new to our channel also get to meet Stephanie and Mark. So Mark's he is an attorney. In fact, let me put up his website here. So what do they call you? The Tiger, right? Didn't the judge call you the Tiger?
The judge said something about a tiger on Alex tail. Now, technically, I don't have a website.
Okay.
Because
this
I got
a good introduction to me.
Yes.
The
yes.
website. Tell the story.
Yes. I got so many interviews and so many emails. Stephanie created that landing page, which is what that is, because I said I would never have a website. So,
right.
But that's the landing page. But yes.
Okay. So this is how people can get to you.
It is. It's how people can find me.
Awesome. And Stephanie, you have started a new podcast, And by the way, so everybody knows, at the top of the chat there, you can see that podcast link, and you can click on that and take it over there, take you to it. So tell us about your new adventure, Everything They Missed.
So Everything They Missed is a podcast that launched September 5th at CrimeCon, where we all were in Denver just a few weeks ago. And it's a case that fell into my lap. This is an unexpected adventure for me. I never thought that I would be in podcasting or do anything like this. I never thought I would do a murder investigation on my own. But it's a challenge that I took on about a year ago. And the case is out of Memphis, Tennessee. It's a 18-year-old murder case. In August of 2007, Danny Harris was murdered. And when I got to know the details of the story, it was just something that I had to dig into. I couldn't let go. And it has been quite a interesting and wild ride, to say the least. So there's someone who most likely is the wrong person that in jail for the murder. And I have turned the investigation into looking into that and simultaneously looking for those responsible.
Interesting. What are you learning? What do you think?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
I feel
wow.
like
What are you
am I-
guys learning?
So, all sorts of things in all different aspects. I'm learning the business. I mean, I'm learning, how to create and write a show. But I'm learning how to investigate a murder. I'm learning how to ask questions. I'm learning how to seek justice. I'm learning how to stand up for those who don't stand up for themselves. I'm learning how to read court documents and analyze petitions and all of the stuff that Mark went to law school for. But I'm also
Find
learning.
people, talk to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Get them to talk to you.
yeah. And I think what has been most beneficial is I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that I'm not trained. I've never been trained as a journalist, as an investigator. And that has served me very well. The fact that I've gone into this not knowing what I'm doing has been the most surprising way that I've gotten people to talk to me. Because I think just the fact that may come across a little bit as a little bit disarming to some people, which is good when you want them to talk about a murder case. So that has been a surprising, and I'm grateful for that.
Karen?
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. When you said that this kind of fell into your lap, just tell us a little bit more about that, because if you weren't looking for it, how did you stumble upon this particular murder case?
Well, you had mentioned at the beginning Mark's connection to the Murdaugh murders. And, Mark and I I consider us newlyweds. We were married in 2022, and when we met in 2020, the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh happened very quickly after. And our lives became consumed with the media firestorm surrounding it. And I got to know a lot of really great journalists, and I got to know a lot of ones that I would consider bad journalists. And those are the ones that I felt like were exploiting victims, that were using the Murdaugh for clicks and headlines and just the story to be consumed as entertainment. And so when it was all said and done and the dust was settled after the trial in 23, I had retired from my career and to be by Mark's side during the trial. And when everything was over, I just felt like, we just all had that, what's next, and a little bit of feeling like we had just all gone through a war. And when we had, Netflix filmed a documentary at our house, Dateline, 48 Hours, any of the major crime shows you can think of were at our home. And I've always been a big true crime fan. So just sitting back and watching how all these stories got made, it kind of started to plant a seed of maybe I could do that. Maybe I've got that in me. Maybe I could do that and I decided that if a case found me and it was organic and it wasn't forced and it didn't have anything to do with Murdaugh, that I would pursue it. And the week after I had proclaimed that I wanted to do this and had said out loud to some girlfriends that I was interested, my son got in the car and started talking about his friend Lucy, her dad was working for the Innocence Project, and he started talking about some of his cases, and I called Jason pretty quickly afterwards, and that's how the case, I say, found me.
I love it. That's a great story. That is really very cool. Mark, what did you think when Stephanie said, hey, I'm diving into this murder case, fresh off the heels of Murdaugh yourself? What'd you think about that?
Well, every day I learn more to understand what I don't know. And when she first said it, you got to go through the transcripts and you get hung up in all the details because the details matter. And, if it goes on for too long, maybe she fast forwards through sometimes the shows to get to the good part. But she dug into the details and in a way, because, you don't know what's important when you first start into something, and then to distill it down to 30-minute increments and tell this really great story. I'm just so impressed with the storytelling, the sort of sifting through everything and bringing out some of the best points. And it's just, it's a really good story, but it's better storytelling. She's done a fantastic job because there's a lot, right? And she's got a lot of good content, and you've got to know when to pivot and talk about this or that. And I don't want to give anything away, but she's done a fantastic job. If people stick to the end, it's going to be a moment that people are going to talk about at the coffee maker in the office. So I guess it comes out on Thursday mornings, but Thursday mornings or Friday mornings, you'll be talking about, holy cow, did you hear this? It's a good show.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, Stephanie, what's the most surprising thing, if you can tell us? Because you said it's just kind of taken on this own life, something that you really never expected when you started. What's been the most surprising and maybe the most gratifying thing about presenting Danny's story in podcast form?
So the most surprising thing, I can't really disclose the whole way, but I will say this. The most surprising thing happened 2 nights before the podcast was released. So that would have been September 3rd. It was released on September 5th. I get a message on X that says, I won't say the name, but I saw the name and it said,
give it away.
No, I won't. That said, I want to talk to you. And I was floored. And so that completely changed the trajectory of the podcast. But what has been the most surprising thing to me, I think the people willing to talk to me. And, I've talked to people on all sides. I've talked to lawyers and investigators, and there were investigators that took months to warm up to me. But I've talked to family members. I've talked to cellmates. I've talked to jurors. I've talked to probably at this point 30 or 40 people. And it was a story that had stuck with people. I talked to Andrew's original lawyer, and this case is 18 years old for him. And I'm rarely nervous talking to anybody, rarely. And I sat on his phone number for about 3 weeks because I was so afraid. At that point, I had researched the story for months. My biggest fear is I was going to call this man, this attorney, and he wouldn't know what I was talking about. He wouldn't remember Andrew. And then how would I react? Because I was so invested in the story. Would I be angry? Would I be upset? Would I be so nervous I wouldn't know what to do? And I called and he answered, and he knew what I was talking about. He said, this case has haunted me for 18 years. This man is 82 years old. He's practiced law for over 50 years. Can you imagine how many cases he's had besides murder cases? Still practices law.
Still tries murder cases. Yeah.
And he said, this case has haunted me. And he said, I hope you can save Andrew, but I hope you can save me. And that was when I thought, oh my gosh, I really have something here. And so it has really been surprising to me how many people have opened up. Yeah.
Can you just real briefly summarize for people who haven't seen the podcast and are not familiar with Danny Harris's story? Just kind of sum it up and then tell us about, who Andrew is.
Yeah. So August 20th, 2007, Danny Harris was murdered in his apartment in Cordova, Tennessee, which is right outside of Memphis. And he was murdered at 10:36 a.m. And we know that because he had a pacemaker. And so his pacemaker stopped. But they didn't find his body for 2 months. So he lay in his apartment for 2 months. I've been to this apartment complex. It's huge. There's over 1,000 units in this apartment complex. And for a body to go unnoticed for 2 months, Chris, I'm sure you have come across scenes like that are savage. How did no one notice? How did no one smell this? 2 of the victim's sons are in law enforcement. And so when the body was discovered, even though he had laid dead for 2 months, in about 48 hours, they had wrapped up the investigation and gotten a confession. And it was one of the most hurried investigations I've ever seen. There was no DNA that was tested. There was a rag stuffed in his mouth. There was a rag under the bedroom door. There was the air conditioner had been turned down to below 60. They didn't test that for fingerprints. So just the whole scene was not processed. And to me, that was the first red flag. If you would think if you had 2 the victim's sons were in law enforcement, that it would be a very meticulous investigation. And Chris, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that later. But when they even invited one of the sons to the scene, even though he had been estranged from his father for 2 months. And so from the very beginning, I had questions. Andrew Hayes, it was a young black man, 24 years old in Memphis. And he had given 2 witnesses a ride to the police station. So he wasn't a witness, he wasn't a suspect. He had just given 2 women a ride to the police station and was sitting in the lobby. And because one of the witnesses had mentioned the name Wayne, and Andrew's middle name is Wayne, they pulled him back into an interview. That interview quickly became an interrogation. Unrecorded, they did not record the interrogation. He has a 62 IQ, which is equivalent to a 3rd grader. So after 27 hours of an unrecorded, poorly documented interrogation, Andrew confesses.
But the
Go ahead,
facts
Mark.
don't really match. I mean, the confession doesn't match a lot of the facts, and it may have matched facts they knew, but they didn't have yet, like the autopsy report. He claimed he hit him in the back of the head, and he was actually struck in the front of the head. But they didn't know that.
He killed him on the second story. There was no second story. It was just a 1 story. And he said he killed him 2 weeks ago instead of 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So his confession didn't match any evidence. And they had questioned suspects earlier that day that they had caught lying. But they let those suspects go. Also, when Andrew confessed, they had subpoenaed bank records and ATM records. The victim's ATM card was swiped 82 times, but they didn't wait for any of those subpoenas to come back. As soon as Andrew confessed, poof, everything was gone. So, there was a lot of questions around it. The Innocence Project picked up the case in 2023 and had pulled a lot of what they're calling new evidence that's pointing away from Andrew and towards somebody else. And my story is just following along with that. But that may have been a little bit longer of an explanation. But even with all of that explanation, it's still a very deep and rich story. So I've talked to Andrew himself. Mark drove me to the prison where Andrew is held.
How was that experience?
Twice. Drove there twice.
It was scary, to be honest. It was scary. I was happy that I had Mark. I would have gone by myself, but I was happy that he drove me. And we talked along the way, and I recorded those, and that's why you'll hear Mark in the podcast, because we talked about the case a lot. And you know, when you get there, it's all the things that, Chris, you probably know that I didn't know to expect. You know, they pat you down, and then you walk in and you sit kind of theater style next to the inmate. You can't sit together. You sit kind of theater style and talk. And I had written Andrew letters telling him I was coming, and he had sent me an application. So he knew that I was coming, but he hadn't gotten my letters of me telling him when. So it was a surprise, and that was emotional. But I needed to see for myself. You know, at that point in the investigation, I still had questions. And I felt like if I'm going to talk about this person, I need to talk to him myself. And I walked out of there, you know, a lot of questions had been answered for me. So
That's fantastic. Yeah.
but I was glad I was walking out. I didn't know where I would want to
Mark,
be.
how did you get out? How did they let you out?
They didn't let
He
me
didn't
in.
get to go.
I had to
sat
sit
in
in
the
the parking.
car.
I sat in the parking lot, and at one point I got out and I was videoing her go in because she wanted me to video it, and I was immediately seized upon by these guards. So why are you videoing this? Well, she told me to. Well, who is she? It's my wife. She's my boss. I'm just doing what I'm told. Please.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So it
Oh,
was
that's
okay.
great.
Wow, you know, I mean, just one of the things back here, you'll see that little plaque back there. It says, "We work for God." Do you sense that, you know, because these types of things are never by accident, in my opinion, ever. I mean, there's always a window left open. Do you sense any, any feeling of, divine movement here?
I do. I'd like to hear Mark's, but I do for sure, because I've been asked consistently, why am I doing this? Why? And I don't know. And I haven't stopped long enough I don't want to know. I haven't stopped long enough to ask myself that question, because, you know, first it was just an idea of I want to do this, and then it was the case, and then it was more. And now this development that has happened, I very much believe there's something bigger out there that's pulling us toward this.
Mark, what are your feelings?
Oh no, there's no question about it. I mean, I can't really answer that without spoiling some of it, but she's good. She's not this good, and you know, I mean, there's just so many things that have to come together, that have to happen. The right person has to be watching, listening, open to hearing something. She has to have the patience to talk to them. They have to have the patience to listen and the wherewithal to hear her. And, you know, I mean, the legal system, we're going to talk. I mean, I think you're going to ask me about Alex appeal. And so many times the legal system, it's a square hole and we have a round peg and it won't fit. And that's the end of it, period. Much as we think it's the wrong answer or the right answer, you know, there's just not a lot we can do. And so to do what she's done here, she clearly had some help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's always fascinating to, recognize that piece of the puzzle, because, like you said a moment ago, there are no coincidences. Everything, the universe is on schedule, is what I like to say. And I believe that's a true principle. And, no matter what, I mean, whenever these types of things happen, one of the things that I learned years ago, I've shared this story 100 times with our audience, but I want to share it with you guys. So I was at a conference one time. It was what they call a CHIA. It's called California Homicide Investigators Association. In Southern California, we had a lot of volume, right? Kind of like Memphis, right? Memphis is, I mean, that agency over there, they can't keep up. I mean, they just can't keep up. It's impossible. However, you start learning certain things, and you start learning, about things that work. Anyway, I was at this conference and I see this guy over in the corner. His nickname was Jigsaw John. Okay. He was with LAPD homicide for 43 years in homicide. Okay. Do you do the math on that? Okay. I mean, that's all he did for 43 years, going back to the Black Dahlia back in the day. And I was a young homicide detective about a year into the job, and I saw him sitting over there, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go see if I can, talk to this guy, see if I can get into his head here for a minute. Maybe he'll show me something. So I did. I gathered up the courage. I walked over to him and I sat down and I said, hey, Jigsaw, you don't know me from, light to dark, whatever. But may I ask you a question? And he goes, sure. And I said, forgive me, but, I kind of want to ask you, do you have some secrets or et cetera? And he looked at me and he looked right through my soul, right into my eyes. And he says, well, I'm going to ask you a question. And I said, what's that? He goes, are you teachable? That was the question, right? And I sat there all, hey, I've been in, working murder for a whole year now, of course, and I hesitated, and he caught that, and he says to me, he goes, you hesitated. He goes, I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you teachable? And I said, yes, sir, I am. He says, okay, I'm going to teach you one thing. He said, when you walk into a room, he said, after everything's been buttoned up, scene is secured, everything's locked down, the victim's gone, evidence is packaged, we used to call bag and tag it. Once all that stuff is gone, he says, I want you to take a chair. I want you to walk into that room where the victim was found and sit in that room and stare at each wall for 15 minutes, so maybe an hour. He said, you will be surprised what those walls tell you. And I took that to heart. And I applied it at every single homicide I ever worked and every crime scene I'd ever worked. And, the CSI guys would be like, oh, there goes McDonough, leave him alone. He'll be back in a little while. And I've applied that in my life to where whenever I walk into like a house or I meet somebody, right, there's two things that I do. One, I look at all their walls immediately to kind of, get a sense of what's going on. And the second thing is I ask them a question about their life. I said, tell me a little bit about your life. And that's much different than tell me a little bit about you. Because we live three lives, our public, our private, and our secret life. All crime, all sin is in the secret life. And if we're to get information out of people, you have to approach them like you have, and you have a gift, because it is a gift. It's a gift from God. And, religion aside, for people, but it's still a divine gift. And in order to get past those barriers of, I need to know what time it is, you've got to be able to not only sense people, but they have to sense the reality of where you're coming from. And if they think you understand what you do, because you have to be sincere, like you're talking about, because if you're not sincere, they'll pick that up right away as well. And then you just understand them and listen, because you become a conduit for something higher than yourself, in my opinion.
I love that, Chris, you're talking about that spiritual component that most people don't even consider or think about when it comes to investigating murder, but it really is there. It's like that old adage, God always leaves a witness. And, Stephanie, what you're doing is like you're peeling back the onion, and in this kind of not innocent way, but, journalists can't really do it. Like I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, if I was to go talk to somebody in prison, and I did try many times throughout my career, they didn't even want to talk to me. So like a journalist approaches it very different than, a mom with wisdom and curiosity doing a podcast, like you're bringing your life experience to this, and you're genuinely curious, and you don't have an agenda. You're not the prosecutor. You're not the defense attorney. it's been 18 years. You're trying to find answers. So I just love that. I just love that whole aspect of, how you're approaching the podcast. And man, it sounds for people listening and watching this, if you haven't subscribed, you need to. So it sounds like this is, by the time we get to the end of the episodes, I think people are going to be, pretty surprised. And, we're along for the ride with you. You're driving and, we're there.
And
Well,
and the name is perfect. Everything they missed.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is such a great name.
Titles are hard, and it took us a very long time to land on a title. But when I landed on it, it was perfect for so many reasons. When this case starts out, it's everything they missed according to the police investigation. But by the time you get to the final episode, everything they missed takes on a completely different meaning. And Chris, it's so interesting what you were talking about, and I can visualize you sitting in that crime scene and looking at all the walls. When I first saw the crime scene photos of Danny Harris, it was a brutal crime scene. I mean, he was hit multiple times, so there was blood spatter everywhere. He was, obviously left for 2 months, and so that was brutal. I'd never seen crime scene photos. And I didn't realize I was about to see crime scene photos. I was flipping through the documents that had been given to me. And then right there, just unexpected, is his body. And, it's jarring, and it's something that you think you're not supposed to be seeing. And, I closed my computer, and it was very upsetting, but then I opened it back up because I felt that kind of, I owed it to this person. I'm going to be talking to this person, so I owe it to them to look and see what has happened to them and look at the walls, and there's blood spatter all over the walls. And, a lot of questions can be answered if you're just looking around. And again, it's such a shame that I think the investigation was so hurried, and I love hearing, Chris, how you start your investigations like that. I mean, I hope that there's a lot of people in law enforcement listening to this that do that, because from what I've learned, I don't know if everybody does that. And I took a deep dive into how law enforcement are trained in investigations or interrogations. And, it doesn't seem like everybody is as well trained as perhaps they could be.
Well, like lawyers, right? I mean, you end up, I was fortunate to be surrounded by really, really good investigators. And, when I started, we didn't have computers. I mean, we had the IBM, typewriter where you had to use the whiteout, that kind of thing, right? We didn't have GoOggle, which is Google, right? And I was fortunate enough to be around guys and gals that had the ability to do what we're doing right now. I mean, we've met you guys, a couple of times even, and we hung out at CrimeCon. We got to know each other, and that art has been lost with investigators today, and I'm assuming with lawyers too. Mark, I mean, am I off base there, or what?
No.
Right?
Yeah, for a multitude of reasons, I don't. Everybody's got more than they can do. We push efficiency, and efficiency doesn't lend itself to everything that can be missed, and therefore you have everything they miss when we're in such a hurry to get an answer within 48 hours or whatever it is that we feel compelled because we've got a big stack on our desk. And, it's not just the Andrew Hayes of the world, it's the Danny Harris and the family. I mean, nobody wants to go through something like that twice. And the thought that the real killer is out there or gets away or never found because someone cut a corner, someone didn't examine everything that was there to be examined, everything on the wall that was there to be seen. I mean, these are real people, and they deserve respect, and they deserve our best effort. And she's certainly done that here.
And
Yeah.
that is a big responsibility when you're talking about a victim. And you know, I thought about the victim's family often when I was writing. He has 4 sons and would have had grandchildren, and his sons are all married. And so I often thought about them as I was writing the story. How would I want somebody to talk about my dad? My dad's passed away. How would I want somebody to talk about him? And so there's a great responsibility, because Danny here it says the victim, but there's a lot of victims in this story. A lot.
Yeah, that's something that folks don't do the math on, right? I mean, you're talking about generations that are now over once that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you did an amazing job in, with Mallory Beach, Mark. I mean, you approach that recognizing, look, we're talking about grandkids, we're talking about children, we're talking about husbands, and the list just goes on. But that's reality. I mean, death is permanent. There's
Yeah.
no second chance for it. And once you have looked at those types of photos, once you've walked into that room, and the really interesting thing about death scenes as a whole is you can smell the blood in the rooms. Okay. I don't want to be too graphic, but at the same time, I also want to be realistic in relationship to when you go into a crime scene and you're not only there to try to tell, the story of what's going on here, but where investigators get it wrong a lot of times. And just by coincidence, tomorrow I'm speaking to a class on Zoom at Loyola.
Loyola.
I can never pronounce
It's a tough one.
anyway, but tomorrow to a bunch of graduates or undergrads and on homicide cold case investigation. And one of the things I always tell when I do presentations like that is I tell the group, said, look, if you can't sit across from your friend and have a conversation, but you have to do it on a digital device, get out of the business. Okay. I mean, get out of the business quickly, because you said it in the very beginning, Stephanie, where you have to have the ability to sit down and recognize that there's a sender and there's a receiver. And you have to 99.9% of the time when you're talking to somebody who's committed the ultimate sin, i.e. they've killed somebody, you have got to be the receiver, because, that's just reality. And one of the great things about, I think there's a shift taking place in law enforcement where investigators are starting to realize, you know what, we're not solving these things, because I think the country has, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's less than 50% on solvability rates. And a lot of agencies are bringing older guys back to help in cold case units, because they're not solving crimes. And when you start looking at the common denominators in that, it is literally the ability to go out and say, hey, can you were there or you were near or whatever the deal was. Can you tell us about this A, B, C, or D? Okay. And then you listen.
And listening. And that's the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly, Mark. And it's just like anything else in life, right? I mean, I had somebody, I saw somebody in the chat say, well, that's common sense. Well, no, it's not. It's you either have it or you don't. I mean, or else we'd have 100% solvability. Go ahead.
And also, Chris, you're seeing like today's homicide investigators are trained far different than when you were trained, right? Look at technology alone. Everybody, what's the first thing everybody thinks of when there's a murder, right? Is their DNA. It's like we go right to the technology. What's the digital footprint? Do we have the cell phone records? all of that is great and awesome and fantastic. And thank goodness we're able to use it to solve crimes. But to your point, this ability to go out and to take the time and knock on the doors and ask questions and stay on it, to be dogged, to be tenacious. I know from being around you for the last, quarter century here, quite a while, that that's what solves these crimes. And also just, I'm thinking about this, our society, we're so used to murder. We really are. We're consumable. We consume it. And it tends to become numbers, or, we're not surprised every day if we read about a murder happening somewhere in this country. But Stephanie, to your point, what I love that podcasts like yours do is it's not about the numbers. It's like one story at a time. You're taking one story, you've broken it down, you've cracked the egg open, you're examining all the tiny details, and you're making a difference for that one family. Chris has done it on all the murders that he has investigated over the years. He was able to give families answers. He was able to find the suspect. So many times he did get confessions from them. And that is because that was his passion. He does it differently today. He's been retired for a while, but anyway, all this to say that, putting a face with the name is so important. It's so important. And, we really can't, look, violence is, in my opinion, growing violence in our culture is not getting better. It's getting worse. And there's real victims here. And so I guess what I'm saying is, kudos to you for taking this one case. And I'm confident there'll be others because you're having enormous success with this podcast. And, maybe you're able to help one family at a time with your podcast. And I know certainly there's many other podcasts that are doing the same. And I just think it's fantastic. And thank goodness we're at a time with technology that you can do it.
Thank you. Yeah. And, I've tried to do this story. Someone from the very beginning gave me some great advice. Donald Albright is the CEO of Tenderfoot, and they partnered with me in this. And from the very beginning, Donald said, create something you want to listen to, because I had an interview with Barry Sheck, and that conversation came along because one of the younger producers on my team didn't know who Barry Sheck was.
What about
and I thought,
Yeah, that's right.
right. And I thought, oh, shoot. Okay, so maybe we need to adjust some stuff because maybe the younger generation doesn't know, the OJ trial or Barry Sheck. Right. But I kept that in mind of create something that I want to listen to. And from that is the story of, yes, it's very, if you just want to put on your headphones and go for a long walk and listen to a real true crimey show, that's this. But if you want to learn about investigation techniques, if you want to learn about what happens when you waive your Miranda rights, if you want to learn some things along the way, by the time you get to episode 4, 5, and 6, you're going to have learned a lot and not realize that you have learned a lot. So I'm hoping that, I've hid some vegetables in the brownies along the way.
Oh, that's so good.
There was a cookbook when my son was little, Jerry Seinfeld's wife, Jessica Seinfeld, and she'd puree beets and spinach and hide them in the brownie batter. And
I
that's
remember
what
that.
this is. That's what this is.
So good.
That's hysterical. So it's fascinating that how did you two tell us where you grew up? We'll start with Stephanie, ladies first, and then Mark. Tell us, were you all, I know you grew up in Tennessee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a very small town in Middle Tennessee called Tullahoma, Tennessee. And it's small, about 25,000 people. I think after church, the nicest restaurant to go to was Captain D's or McDonald's. You know, it was one of those real small towns. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was an English teacher. So just very classic upbringing. I have an older sister and a younger brother. I'm a middle child. And I think I grew up in one of those eras that, you know, you played outside and you weren't in front of screens, and creativity was, you know, what, and so it, all through high school, all through college, I really got a sense from my father that of independence and of working hard. I've had a job since I was 13 years old. So thank goodness I had the kind of father that just, you know, there was never any doubt if I wanted to do something that I could do it. And so I had just, you know, this nice typical Tennessee little life. And then I moved to Nashville and had worked in finance most of my career before I met Mark. And then I met Mark and everything changed.
Everything. Yeah. Yeah. You, Mark, you married way up.
And she learned everything she missed.
Of course.
Right.
And what about you, Mark? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up here in South Carolina, in the upstate, not where I lived, but I, you know, at this point, I live in the low country of South Carolina. I've lived here longer than I lived where I was born.
Okay.
But South Carolina is still a pretty small place, you know,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, and I love it here.
And where'd you go to? I know the answer, but for the audience, tell everybody where you went to law school.
So I went to Clemson, and then because they didn't have a law school at Clemson, I went to the University of South Carolina.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, where I carried my orange backpack. But
Yeah, we love it. You know, we used to live in Mount Pleasant. Y'all know that.
yeah,
And-
We love living in the low country.
Yeah.
man.
So
And-
good.
That's
Our-
Charleston for people.
People
that
are
don't know.
amazing. Yes.
And then
People are amazing.
we were in Tennessee for a little while too, as you guys
That's
know.
right. Very close.
We were
to
there
it.
as well.
Yeah.
I was on the run from the FBI, so we had to keep moving,
Sounds
you know,
like it.
everywhere around. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's good stuff. So the two of you meet, you fall in love, and you had a little run in with some medical issues. I know folks are going to ask, so I figured I would ask real fast. How are you
Sure.
doing, and how's that going?
doing great. Yeah, I found out I guess I found out at the end of 2020 that I had stage 4
That's right.
prostate cancer, and I went to Florida, and I was in treatment down in Florida when the case was going on with Alex Murdaugh, and then came back and we got engaged later that summer, like she said, shortly after the murders. And yeah, clean bill of health. I had a PET scan. We went to Paris for her birthday last year, and you know, I'd been to Florida. I missed my 6-month follow up because I was testifying in Alex's trial, and so I went and followed up, and I got a phone call right before we're about to get on the plane. It said, "Doctor wants you to have a PET scan. He's seen some areas of soft concern." And I said, "What does that mean?" "Well, I don't know. I can't talk to you about that." And so for 2 months, I struggled to get a PET scan. Finally got the PET scan, and everything was clear. So blood works great down to the cellular level. I don't have cancer, knock on wood.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. And I certainly believe, you know, and I've said this before, I used to think that people say, "I'm praying for you," was just something you say like "good morning" or "how you doing," and it may be something that some people say, but I can tell you from experience, I mean, it works, and it's nice to know that people praying for you and are thinking about you, and it made a world of difference to me.
Yeah, it does. And we have one of our mods, Teresa, her husband is going through some stuff. And so we keep him in our prayers as well. And we talk, you know, one of the things about our channel is we're not afraid to bring divinity into the conversation ever, you know, because she gives us the breath of life. And, you know, without it, you know, we might as well all just, you know, say what's next, right? And who knows? So, Mark, had opportunity to get involved in the Alex Murdaugh case. This is a good kind of segue maybe into that. And tell everybody how that all came about. I know you were, maybe some know that you were representing, the Beach family, but kind of walk everybody into that experience and then what it was like to testify during the trial.
How long are we going to talk?
Take as much time as you
I'll
need.
start going like this.
Yeah, and go.
Yeah. When the boat crash happens and there are lots of lawyers, there are not a lot of lawyers that are trial lawyers that do the kinds of things that I do. And I mean, Alec did to some degree. I mean, he used a lot of people but so when the boat crash happens, there aren't that many candidates in terms of who's willing to step up. And I got a call and I talked to some people that I trusted and whether I could do it. And, the thing about me is I'm damn hard-headed and I just don't quit. So if I say I'm going to do it, it may be the last thing that I do, but I'm going to keep trying to do it. And so, we got into it and it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. I mean, you knew it was a tragedy, you knew it was terrible. And most of the time these things, because you are so limited in what you can do, you work through them, you help the family to the extent that you can help someone through this. And then they move on. I mean, not that they move on with their grief, they move on with their lives, they move on, they get this thing, whatever this is. I mean, because it's different things to different people over and begin to try to heal. And I remember one of the first times I met Mallory's father, Philip, saying that Mallory didn't die in vain. There's going to be a greater good that's going to come out of this. And I thought, oh, it's an impossible standard. It's the worst thing that can happen to you in your life, bar none. The tragic loss of a child or loss of any child for that matter. But that grief, because it's not supposed to happen in the ordinary course. The natural order of things is your children don't die before you. And so many people are consumed with that grief. And these people are just amazing. Because they weren't consumed with the grief. They put the grief to work and they always kept their faith and they always believed that something good was going to happen and that she didn't die in vain. And it turns out she didn't. And I think without it, a lot of people, a lot of light was shined on a lot of things, and a lot of people that probably would have been victimized in the future are not being victimized now. And it just, I never knew what I was saying yes to when I got involved in it. And as far as testifying, the thought of testifying on that stage, right, with the whole world watching.
Yeah, the whole world, literally.
Literally, yeah, literally. And I remember when I first took the stand, I was looking in the courtroom, which was completely full. And it was like during COVID where you'd see the baseball stadiums with the fake people, nobody was moving. And as it started going along, they would, I didn't know how it was going. I didn't know it was going good. I didn't know it was going bad. And then I said one or two things and somebody laughed and they were all talking. And then I felt like, oh, this is going okay. And then the defense lawyer stands up and he's got this big stack, which I think now is a prop. But the first thing that went through my mind was, holy cow, what is he fixing to ask me? And so, I think that that experience made me, I don't recommend it to people, but I think it made me a better person. I think it made me a better lawyer. I know the beaches made me a better person and made me want to be a better person. And I don't know how much being on the cusp of stage 4 cancer and, the imminence of our own mortality, what factors into that. But there's more to life than just what you see on the screen of your phone and you, right? So, and if you can help people, if you can do something good in this world, leave it in a better way than we found it. I think that's what I aspire to do now.
Wow, what wisdom. I mean, that's profound what you just said. Stephanie, what's going on in your mind as you're watching all of this stuff unfold? What's going on behind the scenes?
You know, there was a mix of emotions. I mean, fear, for one. At the beginning, you didn't know who had killed Paul and Maggie, and so I was afraid for Mark's life. There were times that I wouldn't bring my son to South Carolina because I was in fear. But then quickly, just this great admiration for Mark and his work. And I was still a newlywed and getting to know Mark. And he was so inspiring, just the way that he would fight for these victims and fight for these people. And I had never met anybody that had so much passion, and it's passion for his work, passion for his family, passion for justice and to get things right. All of that bled over into what I'm doing now. And I wouldn't be doing what I was doing now without that. I mean, he gave me the bravery to do a lot of stuff that I'm doing. And he woke up something in me that I didn't know that I was missing. And you can't be married to Mark Tinsley or be friends with him or be around him and not also want that and want to do that. And so, you know, I think what he said is exactly right. There's so much more beyond our screens. And you know, if you get out, you can make a change. One person can make a change. But you have to get out there and not be afraid. And Mark is such a hero and an inspiration to fight and not be afraid. Yeah.
Definitely. And, you know, I would say that, Stephanie, that hero word definitely came to my mind as an observer watching the trial with everybody else. Mark, when you got up there, you really were the hero, because there was so much commentary and so much talk while the trial was going on that, oh, wow, you know, the Murdaugh family, they were so powerful. You know, there's no way he's going to get convicted. You know, people were afraid he was going to beat the rap. He wasn't, you know, the jury was going to be swayed. I mean, there was so much, as I said, noise and commentary sidelined going along with this trial. You know, when you got up there, and I remember more when the prosecutor was getting the statements from you a little bit more than my memory of when Harpootlian when they were crossing you. But go ahead.
Judge Newman said the smartest thing that Dick did was let that other lawyer cross
That's
me.
right.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That was a good
Yes.
strategy.
It was great. And I mean, you know, we were cheering for you like with everybody else watching this.
You know,
and so your piece was so important. Go ahead.
I tell you, it's a terrible thing, and I know that. And when the minute the verdict came in, no, not the verdict came in. The minute the sentencing was done, Stephanie and I got up and we went back in the judge's chambers, and it was me and Stephanie and the judge and his wife, and it was very emotional for me, and because I felt a certain responsibility in pushing Alec, in going after Alec. You know, I mean, and I was pushing him. And so, you know, the thing that bothered me the most was I didn't really see anybody that was there the way I felt like somebody should be there for Paul and Maggie. Whatever they did in their lives, whatever criticism you may have, they didn't deserve what happened to them. And so, you know, I wanted everybody to understand. I wanted the jury to understand, because you had to understand the minutia to really see the whole picture in terms of what he did. And so, you know, one of the things I think that pushed me was that burden and that responsibility that I felt towards them, to make sure that there was some measure of justice for what had happened to them for the worst reasons. You know, I mean, I'm not saying there's ever a good reason, but this is the worst of all reasons for himself, just to save himself.
Exactly. And can we take a second, as long as you brought up Judge Clifton Newman, we called him America's favorite judge here on the interview room. Yeah, we're biased, but we're also common sense. It was so, he had such command of the courtroom, and clearly this is such a well-earned, respected career, clearly. You know, we're all coming into this at the end, because this was the last trial, I believe, right before he retired from the bench. But, you know,
and his son had just died unexpectedly.
oh, that's
Oh, I
right.
know that.
Yes, that's right. Like less than a year. Oh no, it was a few
No.
months before the
No, it
trial.
was
Yeah.
right before, right?
That's
Yeah, it
right.
was just
His
weeks.
son passed away in January of that year, right?
It was just weeks before the trial started.
Oh,
Yeah.
unbelievable. And, you know, and then here's this media circus, right? With this trial descending on, you know, Colleton County, not used to big national, international interest murder, double murder cases. And Judge Newman did such a masterful job of calm, cool, collected, didn't let the defense run wild and get out of control. The court, I mean, he just has that quiet, respectful, I'm sort of at a loss for words here, but you know, what an incredible judge. And I think kudos need to go to him for kind of keeping everything in check the way it needs to for justice to be served in a trial. Look, since then, we have seen murder trials where it feels like the defense might be pushing. The judges are not always as strong as Judge Newman. Some appear to be weaker. All of that to say, you know, I think that piece of the trial and his command of the courtroom really lended, well, at least it showed the country the quality of justice going on in that part of South Carolina.
And if you go back and listen to the sentencing, I mean, it's just something that I hope law students go back and watch and listen to. It's, if he's speaking off the cuff, because there were no notes in front of him that I saw. It was just, he's the most well-spoken man I've ever been around.
He, and to be in that courtroom in that moment with nobody breathing, not a sound, and him saying everything that you wanted to say and have the wherewithal to be able to say, and it was just, it was fantastic. I think the first thing I said when we went back in the chambers was, Judge, I don't know what happened to you, because I've tried cases in front of you before and you weren't this good. But what you
Talk
said
about
out there,
divine intervention, though, don't you think there had to be? I mean, for him to be that, I mean, there was divine intervention.
oh, I told him, I said, that was the most incredible thing I've ever heard spoken in public, ever. And it
Yes.
still is.
Yeah.
Truly.
I'm gonna go back and watch it after this again.
I know.
That's a huge compliment, especially from the two of you who were there. I mean, because you felt the pulse of that every single day, every single day.
Yeah,
So I got a
we'll never
question
leave us.
for you guys. So I have this. I actually have a copy. Okay, it's Miss Becky's book.
Oh,
I
haven't read it.
What kind of curveball? Y'all got. We got lucky, man. We actually got one. I think it's gonna be a collector's item one. I'm teasing, but how does this play into the future? What say you guys?
You know, I don't think it does. I think for the reasons Stephanie was talking about and that Karen was talking about just now. I mean, you know, he kept a very clean record. He is a very well-respected jurist, and I mean, the fact of the matter is two of the most vocal jurors weren't actually jurors; they were on the jury, and so
alternates.
Well, one was not. One was taken off because she violated his instruction, and that's the egg lady juror. And so, you know,
How'd she get egg lady? Where did that come
She
from?
brought
again?
eggs in. And it's terrible because this is how country people get a bad rap. She had chickens and she was nice and brought homemade eggs in, which
Oh.
are the best for pound cakes and
Yeah,
anything
they
else.
are.
And so she was just being nice and they called her the egg lady.
I think somebody else brought the eggs and they'd given her some. She said, "Can I get my eggs before I leave?" After he excused me.
Either
But-
way,
Yeah,
somebody was
either
being
way.
nice bringing eggs.
Yeah,
Yes.
but no, I mean,
Better than the bag lady.
Right. Could have been a lot worse. Or
Hey,
the
and-
monkey person.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
It was the
interrupt.
monkey
But
no, I mean, then you go from Judge Newman to Justice Toll, and I just don't think that, and there's certain things we don't look inside of. We don't typically look inside of the jury room and what happens in there. And, if a juror comes out and says, well, they pressured me or I needed to go because it was my birthday. I mean, that's just something that happens, and unfortunately or fortunately, it happens at times, and everybody may feel pressure to go one way or the other. But in the end, they voted. In the end, they were polled and said that was my vote. And in the end, they testified that it didn't affect them. And so I just don't believe that there's a snowball's chance that he gets a new trial.
at all? Yeah. Any other technicality that Poot's going to bring up?
No, I think that, I mean, he brought up a lot, but I think that they opened the door on the financial crimes. So I don't know how you complain about that. I think their real shot is whether or not a court official doing whatever it is alleged that Becky's alleged to have done is prejudice presumed by her doing it. So did Justice Toll use the right standard or not is really, it's going to live and die on that. But I just don't think so.
Stephanie, what do you think?
I think when I heard guilty, I left the courtroom and left that behind me.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Karen?
I'm going to hang my hat on what Mark is saying. I'm going with he's there. He's got the best feel for the players and what's the legal maneuvers going on behind the scenes. And I would hope that Alec is behind bars the rest of his life, and that's where he is, and all of us get to move on. So I'm going with what you're saying, Mark.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be behind bars the rest of his life.
Yeah.
He's going to spend the rest of his
financial
life
crimes alone.
just for the
Many
financial-
lifetimes.
Yeah.
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 So
Hurting people.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And did you all make it to the estate sale?
no.
No, we didn't go on purpose.
No.
They're not going to go.
I'm teasing.
I mean, wasn't
I
there
wish
like a
I'd taken
couch
some of
that
my
was
junk and
sold
put
for
in
like
with it, though.
30,000? It was.
Yeah.
But Mark does
Yeah, that
have
was crazy.
the Mercedes. I mean, he had gotten Maggie's Mercedes as part of the
Well, I don't
settlement
have
for
it
the
yet. I mean,
beach, but
we're
that's
going to
still
sell
needs
it
to
and
be.
give
Yeah.
it to Miles Pals, but
Yeah. But
Sled still got it.
Interesting. You should give it to the Crime Museum in Pigeon Forge.
oh, that's right. That's close to us.
I'm teasing. But
Mark
It's
has
called
a
Alcatraz
base in
East.
Tennessee.
Alcatraz East. Y'all, have
It's
you
a
ever been there?
museum.
Have you guys ever been there?
No, I mean close to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge. Is that what
Yeah.
you're talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. It's
No,
right
I have
in
never
there.
been there. No.
We went there.
Uh,
We have a video on it. We filmed some of the, I guess, highlights, lowlights or highlights. It's a macabre place. It's fascinating, but in kind of a dark, fascinating way.
I thought
They
it was
have
great.
Ted Bundy's VW Bug in there.
oh,
Remember how he rigged it where you can get in, but you can't get out.
Yeah.
He took the handle off, so his victims were trapped.
Well,
And
you
all
would
kinds
think
of other crazy stuff there, unbelievable stuff there. But
Yeah, after he had you in there, there's no deposit, no return. There's a Volkswagen in there's a guy has a similar Volkswagen in Utah. We passed it. It says, "I'm not Ted." It was crazy. Interesting
playing.
stuff.
so
So there's no way he's going to get out of jail, and there's probably no way he's going to get a second trial. No.
There's no way he gets out of jail. I don't think he gets a new trial. And look, I mean, if he does, I will say this. There's things that we know, if you remember during the trial, GM saw the trial was happening, realized that the prosecution didn't have the OnStar data. Alex's phone uploaded to the OnStar, and there was more information than I think the prosecution understood in some of that information. So, which is not good for Alec. I think that there's some powerful evidence out there. You remember there was a big deal about all these steps and steps and steps and steps. Well,
Yeah.
there's probably some evidence that shows exactly what he's doing, GPS kind of evidence. And so
And they didn't introduce that stuff?
they didn't know it was in there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Because, it literally, 1 or 2 days left in their case when they get the OnStar stuff.
Right, I remember that from the
or the
vehicle.
I
lab day.
remember that. Mhm.
Yeah.
But it looked like him scurrying back to the house, to the car, or
Yeah. You can see his movements.
Well, the fact that he had said he had to run back and put the gun back and all this other stuff. He got an Oscar for at least trying, but he wasn't very good at it. And, there's a program a lot of people don't know about. It's called Gladiator. And it's from the CAS team in Quantico, which is a cellular analysis team from the FBI. And what Gladiator can do is, if you're Alex Cox, let's say from the what do you call it, the Vallow murder,
Lori Daybell.
Lori
yeah,
Daybell case. Remember how they put him at the fire pit
yeah.
in the backyard?
Mhm.
That's Gladiator. Okay, and I don't know if they ran it through Murdaugh or not, because they were under some time crunch at that point. But I don't know if SLED, I know, SLED has access to it. But that's a really interesting program because it's only used in some really, really high profile stuff. I think you'll probably see it in the Charlie Kirk problem, where, you see what's going on with that and all of the conspiracies and everything. I mean, Karen and I were just up there a couple of weeks ago. Actually, right when the thing went down, we were there the next day. Just by chance, we were going up to visit our son at school, and we happened to be right there. If there's any luck that I had, it's in crime.
Being in the right place at the wrong place at the right time.
Exactly.
That's it.
If I didn't have
That's it.
if I didn't have that luck, I'd have no luck at all, literally. And so, am I right, Karen? Am I off base on that?
No, unfortunately, you're not wrong about that. I'm seeing in chat a couple people are asking about the Stephen Smith unsolved murder case. As long as we have you here, I know we're kind of throwing this. If you guys heard anything new about that, we haven't heard anything new recently.
No.
No new updates. Yeah.
Not that I know of.
I think that
Yeah.
got so much of attention because it was tied to Murdaugh, and I think
It was.
unfortunately now that Murdaugh has kind of slipped away, maybe it slipped away, but it's
Yeah.
a tragedy. I don't know how. I hope they
Yeah,
solve
that's
it someday.
probably
Maybe if
still-
we say it out loud, that it will be solved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mark Keel, is he still up there running SLED? Anybody know?
Yep. He's still
He's a
chief.
great guy. He's a great guy. Really good people. Professionally, put that over here, but when you meet him one-on-one, he's a really neat person. And the Smith family, hopefully they'll get some answers. We'll see as things go on. But so what else is cooking what's on the horizon with your podcast, Stephanie? I mean, for those folks that just got with us, tell everybody again about what you got going there with everything they missed.
So episode 6 will be released this Thursday, and then we'll take a 2-month break to do some more investigation and catch up on some court dates. But you know, we're still, I never thought that I would be in a case that we're writing, that is happening in real time. But it is, it's, you know, if you look up this case now, the case is closed. It's been closed for 18 years. And if it wasn't for the work of the Innocence Project attorneys in 2023 and, the case falling in my lap in 25, I think that I think a lot of things would have stayed buried. I think the wrong person is in prison, and I feel like I can say that with some confidence now because of some investigations that have happened and because of some things that I have heard firsthand. And so I hope people start to listen. It's, you know, I love to binge anything, whether it's binging stuff on Netflix or binging podcast. And so now is the best time to start on episode 1, because all of the feedback I get when it was dropping week to week is I wish there was more and I wish there was longer. So start now and you'll be up, you know, for the next 2.5 hours listening to it. But it's such an amazing story. And I'm only saying that because I've had such a great team working with me to make it an immersive. The sound design is beautiful. The writing is beautiful. You'll hear Mark in it. So if you're a Mark Tinsley fan, you'll hear Mark in it. And that happened organically too. Mark and I would be sitting around the kitchen table and I would be asking him questions about court documents or trial strategy. And I would just hit record on my phone for my notes later. And the more that I listened to my notes, Mark made it into the show. And so it's been a case that has consumed my life. And thankfully, Mark has been along for the ride as an inspiration, as a mentor, as an advisor, and also as a support system. I can't imagine walking out of a prison and him not being there. I can't imagine going down this road and him and my family not being there. You'll hear my best friends are in the show because they're also attorneys and they organically made it into the show. So I hope everybody that loves a good true crime, if I've heard it compared to Serial and S-Town and all of those good long narratives that just capture you and want you to keep listening. So I hope that people listen and enjoy it.
Well, trust me, I don't know how it ends, but I know you'll want to keep listening. If you haven't started or you just started, you're going to want to keep listening because it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I know the ending, and I'm not going to say it, but it is going to be off the hook. So good, you know, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and get over there to listen. And, you know, that's the one thing that Karen and I love about doing this. First of all, it's amazing that, you know, I have my sweetheart with me every Sunday night, you know, here that we do this. And I mean, she's come up with stuff where I'll just sit back and go, how did you get that? Where did that come from? And, you know, this podcasting stuff, I mean, like you guys, we had no idea we were going to get into this stuff at all. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was, you know, initially kind of thrust on us with, you know, well, if we do this, what's our mission statement? What are we going to do? And we literally, you know, decided, okay, well, we have to give families and voices and victims a voice. And, you know, we're not here to solve crime. I mean, we can do that, you know, on other things. And, you know, but this is a place, it's a safe place where we get thousands of people watch it and they get here and they go, you know what? One of the biggest compliments I think Karen and I get, and we talk about it all the time, and is when you see in the chat, I feel very safe here, you know, because there is so much going on, in my opinion, in the world today that there's not an upside to doing what we're doing right now unless you approach it, you know, with from a professional, you know, approach. It drives me crazy to watch some of the stuff that goes on. I mean, even in this Charlie Kirk thing, I mean, I stood there. I stood exactly right where almost the suspect fired. We went up there. I took video of it. I went over where they found the gun. I talked to a lot of, my contacts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And guess what? The kid did it. End of story. He shot him. Let's move on. Because what they're doing is they're creating all these other narratives. And Mark, you know more than anybody what a defense attorney is going to do in a trial, as high profile that thing's going to be. And there are 50 conspiracy theories out there that say, oh, by the way, what about this one? And how many jurors do you need, Mark, in that box to say?
Well, you here you need to qualify 20 of the whole panel that can say they can be fair and impartial, and then you pick from those 20.
And out of those 20, how many does the defense need to agree? Right.
One. Yeah.
Just one. Yeah.
Trials are terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of terrifying. It is. It is.
Which is why, if you're wrongfully convicted, it is so difficult to overturn that conviction.
That's a good point. That is a solid point. And that's where the Innocence Projects and your folks like you come in, because you can be a platform of, a voice of reason, yet a voice of truth. And I love that name. Again, everything they miss, because, we are human. I mean, and I'm speaking only from my own personal experience. I've made mistakes. I have made mistakes as an investigator. Go ahead.
One of the trips that we made to Memphis, we went and picked up Andrew's son. Andrew's the guy that's in prison. His son was just a year old when his father was incarcerated. Never met him. And we drove him 2 hours north of Memphis to the prison. Stephanie went in with him. And you talk about everything they missed. There was 18 years, the whole life of this kid.
Well, and I did that because Tamarian is his son, and he was 1 year old when I talked to Andrew, the first time I had visited him in prison, I said, what can I do? Because, he wasn't asking for anything, nothing, no money on the commissary, nothing. And I said, what can I do? And he said, bring my child to me. And that was so meaningful to me as a parent, because if I was wrongfully convicted, if I was in jail for 18 years, the only thing I would want is someone to bring my child to me. And it was the most emotional, the most touching. It's an event in my life that I will never forget. And I can't believe that I was there to witness this man and this 18-year-old boy hugging for the first time.
Wow.
And, when you go into prison, you're only supposed to hug and kiss briefly and then sit theater style. And the guards knew what was happening. And they let Andrew and Tamarian hug for probably 5 minutes. And Tamarian is this big football player looking kid. And Andrew held him and held the back of his head like a baby. And they just cried, just these two grown men crying. And it was, it was an experience. And I felt like what they were needing from each other is, do you love me? Yes, I love you. And it was just 2 hours of them sitting next to each other, and you're not supposed to touch each other. And they wouldn't let go of each other the entire time. So talk about a spiritual divine, if that's, I walked out and told Mark, if that's the only thing that this podcast has done, then it was worth it.
Wow, that's incredible. What a powerful moment you just described there between father and son. Wow.
Yeah.
Stephanie, will you both come back?
Yes.
Well, we'll have to have you back just for any reason, of course, but if there's any updates down the road with the case and anything,
Definitely.
or part 2. I mean, I know
Yes.
you've got
I'll
your
come
parts,
back
but
after
like,
part 2, because you guys will be
Major
oh
part
my
2.
Gosh, yes,
Yes.
We'll come
please
back and
come
talk about
back
that.
because
Okay, so we have a
Yes.
tradition here at the interview room. Karen and I are going to go off screen, and it's going to be Stephanie and Mark. Okay, and then you guys get the last word. You can say whatever you want to the audience. There's just under 1,000 people here right now, so whatever you all want to say, it's up to you. And when you're done, okay, just say aloha. Okay, and from there we end up going to Hawaii, and you'll see what I mean by that at the very end here. So, both Karen and I want to thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And guys and gals out there, I know you all think this has been a really, really great opportunity to get to meet Stephanie and Mark again. And but we want to thank you. We're going to have you back for sure on when your schedule permits, whatever you need. And just send us an email or pick up the phone or whatever, and we'll get you going. So I'm going to step out, then Karen, go ahead. Then Karen, and then it's going to be the 10.
Well,
Bye.
Karen, thank you for having us.
You.
thanks
Yeah.
for coming on, you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And I'll say this to everybody watching. I mean, they are even nicer in person than they are on this show. Karen,
Oh, you're so
both,
kind.
Oh, well, you're both phenomenal people. And especially you. I mean, he's okay, but you're
Karen is the best. Mark
Karen
read
is the
my
best.
mind.
I
Mark read my mind.
No,
So fun.
We
You
were
guys
so
are
excited to
awesome.
meet y'all in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Same,
was-
same here.
CrimeCon
You guys
was
are an amazing
amazing.
couple.
well,
Yes.
you're
You
very
guys are
genuine.
amazing.
Yes.
You're very genuine, and
Everyone
and-
knew that Chris was amazing, but who knew that Karen was equally?
Oh, you're so
goodness.
kind.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
we're
we
gonna
think
pull-
the
I'm
same
gonna-
of you guys.
Thanks,
he's gone for
Margaret.
good. Well, enjoyed being on here with you. I tell you how proud I am of all the hard work, and everybody that's watching.
Aw.
You should really check it out. And the first part's good. The second part's going to blow your mind. So
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah,
I-
thank you for having us. Thank you for listening. Karen and Chris are, if anybody was wondering, are just as amazing in person. And I feel so great that we were able to come on the show and talk about this. But
yeah. And I mean, Stephanie didn't have any background in this, and she's done a phenomenal job. But anybody who's motivated, if you see some wrong, you see some injustice, you really owe it to yourself to step up and do the right thing. And we thank you for watching, and we appreciate all your kind words. And I read the comments, and I appreciate those comments too. Thank you.
yeah, that's right. And I would say to anybody out there who is thinking, can I do this, and whatever that this is in your mind that perhaps you think is too big or too much of a challenge or too much of an adventure or too much of a change from what you're doing right now, this is your sign. Go do it.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me and you go to our favorite retreat. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now, we're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now, we're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away, yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.